Everywhere I tried to tell this story, people disregarded it as sort of twisted fanfiction or something. There's nowhere I can put this disturbing account where it'll be taken seriously. So I decided to put it on a Creepypasta page because it's the only place possibly won't be disregarded and laughed at. It's all about a bizarre episode that only I seem to see of the show RWBY. RWBY is one of the most recognized anime web series ever, and with good reason. I didn't find out about the show until the first 2 seasons were put on Netflix. I fell in love with the show immediately after watching it. I'll admit the animation in the first few episodes was a bit lacking, but I really didn't mind because the story, characters, action, and so forth were all so good. Unfortunately, due to the death of the series creator, Mati Ohm, the 3rd season was postponed. All RWBY fans, including myself, were deeply saddened by the loss and waited for a very long time for the show's eventual return. One day in early 2015, I thought it had finally happened. I was on YouTube when I saw a video from Rooster Teeth in my subscription box titled RWBY Volume 2.5 Episode 1 Death and Despair. I heard rumors that Rooster Teeth were planning on making the 3rd season darker, so I had thought the title was a sure sign that the rumors were true. The video was thumbnailed with a picture of Yane, looking very angry and having blood running down her forehead, like she was fighting a deadly battle with a dangerous opponent. Enthusiastically, I clicked on the video, went full screen, and waited to be entertained. The episode started with the standard Rooster Teeth opening, and then cut to black. It then played what I assumed to be the new opening sequence, which consisted of RWBY, Wise, Blake, and Yane walking side by side down a hallway in Beacon. The music came up. It was different from the other openings, which were fast and epic. This one was slower and more melancholic. It had the usual singer, Casey Lee Williams, or at least it sounded like her, singing a sad song about how one death could impact the lives of so many people. Upon hearing it, I assumed it was either a homage to Mati Ohm or possibly a hint that a major character was going to die this season. It was actually a very nice silent piece. It just seemed like an odd choice for opening to an action fantasy. As an opening continued, the hallway became darker and darker, eventually Yane faded away. This repeated itself with Blake and then Wise. The hallway was growing darker the whole time. When it was just RWBY left, the background was completely black. RWBY continued to walk alone until she stopped, got on her knees and started sobbing. Then everything cut to black. Then the actual episode started. It showed Beacon on a rainy day. The point of view started outside the school and traveled in through the front doors. It then traveled through the halls and staircases of the school. The whole scene was one continuous shot until it finally reached Team RWBY's room. The scene then cut to RWBY, Wise, Blake, and Yane inside the room. It was only then that I realized how poor the animation was. It looked a lot like the first couple of episodes, but worse. The lighting never seemed right, and the character's motions seemed stilted and restrained. RWBY was sitting on the edge of the bed with her face in her hands. Wise was staring gloomily at the window, and Blake was curled onto a fetal position on her bed. Yane was in the center of the room and trying to cheer up the girls. Though it was a pretty clunky expulsion, each of them revealed why they were so depressed. RWBY explained that someone had desecrated her mother's grave. They had dug up the corpse and threw it in a tree nearby. They then vandalized the headstone with spray paint and permanent marker. The authorities said they also found a large sum of cigar butts, beer cans, and cotton wrappers around and in the grave. RWBY said she felt disgusted that someone would do such a thing and was saddened because of it. She also hinted that she suspected a Roman Torchwood was behind it. For RWBY, I thought that was pretty dark. Wise about that the She Dust Company has suffered an attack from the White Fang. The terrorists had killed a lot of employees and her father. Wise started crying, and RWBY stopped and put her arm around her. Wise said that she would be leaving soon for a few days to attend her father's funeral. Blake was oddly disturbed by Wise's story, being a former member of the White Fang herself. She said that the group's slayer, her ex-boyfriend Adam, had challenged her to a mono fight to the death. The rest of the girls were caught off guard by this statement. They started questioning her and trying to encourage her not to accept. Blake almost yelled at them, saying she already accepted and was going to find him alone later, and they need to not worry about her. Anne was clearly saddened by the other girls' reports. However, in her typical optimistic fashion, she told them that they can get through these hardships and continue on. Then, much to my surprise, RWBY, Wise, and Blake began yelling at Yane. They screamed about how everything was terrible and there was no hope. What really shocked me was when they started shouting very strong profanities at poor Yang. The show had language before, but only minor stuff. Now they were saying the F word or an S word, among other things. They called her terrible names and told her to get out. He threatened her if she did not comply. Yang, noticeably terrified, started weeping as she ran out of the room and slammed the door behind her. The scene immediately jump cut to Team Juniper's room. Only Pyrrha and John were in the room, with Ren and Nora nowhere in sight. Pyrrha seemed frustrated with John, telling him he needs to learn his aura. She was not calm and kind to him like she usually was. This time came across as bitter and ended as constant failures. John kept trying to defend himself, commenting about how aura probably isn't too important anyway, as it did not help Nora and Ren. I immediately understood the implication that the two had died, presumably in battle. When John mentioned his lost teammates, Pyrrha got upset and dropped her head. She whispers something inaudible, and John approaches her. He apologizes and the two hug each other. Then the scene ends with a fade to black. There's a quick flash of something, but I did not see what it was. I assumed that it was some kind of message or image, but I cannot be sure. The next scene fades into Yang walking, crying in through the halls of Bacon. There is a total absence of her students and teachers in the school. Only Yang seems to be there. There is also a total silence except for Yang's sobs. She walks outside the school and is suddenly knocked over by a blast of fire. She looks up and sees Cinder walking out of the flames. She immediately activates her Ember Seeker, getting ready to fight. I found this really confusing because the show left off with Cinder infiltrating Bacon, posing as a student. When did Cinder end that plan, and when did Yang recognize her as a threat? The two began fighting in what I will admit to be a pretty cool action scene, but neither of them seemed to really want to fight. Their moments looked restrained and half-hearted, and they really hate each other. That and there was no dialogue I saw of Yang's occasional grunt or oof. The other managed to hit Yang in the head with a fireball, and Yang fell backward. She hit her head on the ground, and a very loud and realistic crack was heard. She slowly got up with blood running down her forehead, the final for the video. Without warning, the scene jump cut yet again. This time to Blake walking the woods that had appeared in the black trailer, the one with the red trees. She walked into it clearly. On the other side was Adam. Holder and his weapons, Wilt and Blush. Again, I was confused because Adam had not appeared in the actual show until the last episode of season 2. And now he was fighting Blake. It seemed like I had missed something. Blake pulled out Gamble Shroud and the two immediately began fighting. And like the last fight scene, which is cool but underwhelming, this one was very slow and quiet. Their weapons did not even claim as they hate each other. Then the screen started flashing white. It continued until the video cut out completely. A message of white letters in the background appeared. It said, "When God dies, so does the universe he created." Then the ad in the middle of the video began to play. It was for Chili's for those wondering. It was during the ad that I was finally starting to get creeped out. I assumed the show was just going on a darker direction before, but now I was legitimately scared. However, I was too curious to close the video, so I waited until all the ad was over and let the video start again. When the video came back, it showed RWBY walking alone in her forest. She was talking to herself, saying that Yang couldn't hope to understand how she felt because Summer was not her mother. She sighed and sat down sadly next to a large tree. She closed her eyes and tilted her head upwards. Then out of nowhere, a bear wolf jumps into the frame and lunges at RWBY. I'll fully admit that I was startled by this jump scare. RWBY was quick to counter the attack. She pulls out Crest of Rose and simply cuts out the grim. The bear wolf's bloody chunks are strewn across the forest. Then there is a rustling in the grasses. RWBY turns on to see Rowan Torchwick stepping out of the shadows, clapping. He congratulates her on the rim killing. Then he takes the cigar out of his mouth and asks her how her mother is doing. RWBY becomes justifiably furious and lunges at Torchwick with her sight. He dodges all of the attacks. Then he pulls out a white surgical mask out of his pocket and puts it on over his nose and mouth, all while still avoiding RWBY's swinging weapon. Then he pulls out a small gray orb or ball and throws it on the ground. There's a small explosion and the area begins to fill with dark smoke. RWBY looks around and becomes dizzy and disoriented. Her eyes roll black. She drops Crescent Rose and she falls unconscious on the ground, moans softly. There's another fade to black. When the next scene faded in, it showed RWBY on the ground with her hands tied and her mouth gagged. She struggles but cannot seem to move. Tortured Dan approaches her, bends down and begins removing her skirt. I closed my eyes at this point, not wanting to be what was obviously coming next. However, due to the noises, I had a pretty good idea. I knew at this point that I knew this was not just a darker episode, this was something much more sinister. I kept my eyes shut until I heard the scene end. When I opened my eyes, I saw Yang lying down on the ground where she was lying cinder. Her face was burned and her purple eyes stared into the distance, and there was a lot more blood on her head now. The scene jumped cut again to Blake and Adam. Adam was cut, bruised, and bleeding. His weapons were gone. He was on all fours, looking up at Blake, who pointed her weapon at him. Then he told her to show who she really was. Blake shot him in the head and his blood went splattering across the ground. He fell over dead. Then Blake said aloud, "This is who I really am!" She then put the weapon in her mouth and pulled the trigger. Her head splattered blood as well as she fell down next to Adam's corpse. The camera zoomed in on Blake's lifeless face, zooming in until the shot was nothing but the black of her hair. The next scene faded in. RWBY holding her torn clothing over her nude body, limping through the woods. She continued on, panting the whole way, until she reached Summer Rose's grave. The grave looked cleaned up, but there was a hole underneath the headstone, as if no one had filled it yet. RWBY fell on her hands and knees and crawled to the grave. She looked down. The camera showed an open coffin with Wise's body lying inside. Her face was covered with bumps and hives, as if she had some allergic reaction. RWBY started crying and looked up at the sky. Why? She yelled as the camera zoomed away from her. As the shot expanded to show more scenery, it was revealed that the world of Remnant was in ruin. There was smoke and fire rising from the forest and mountains. Pinky was in the distance, also on fire. Crashing and smashing noises were heard. An earthquake erupted, cracking one of the mountains. Then everything faded to black. Only one piece of text appeared. In love and memory of Monty Ohm. Then the Rooster Teeth outro played and the video ended. As soon as it was over, I exited the video. I was traumatized. What had become of this beloved show? I was so disturbed that I cleared my history, not wanting any reminders of what I had watched. However, the next day I got curious. I wanted to see what the comments were on that video. I went to Rooster Teeth's channel, but it was not there anymore. I searched the episode on Google, and nothing came up but the Rooster Teeth website. After browsing their site, I again found nothing. My curiosity soon turned into an obsession. I had to find at least evidence of this disturbing episode. I searched YouTube, Google, Rooster Teeth, Bing, Yahoo, IMDb, even Wikipedia. I found nothing. As I was searching for it, I was also trying to figure out what the episode could possibly mean. I mentally analyzed every frame and message. Just before I wrote this, I figured it out. Someone had taken Monty Ohm's step too far. It was tragic. Whoever created this episode was possibly obsessed. I concluded that someone had made this disturbing episode, hacked Rooster Teeth's YouTube channel, and uploaded it. Rooster Teeth was taking it down when they saw it. Whoever the psychopath was, they figured that if Monty was dead, the show he created had to as well. After all, when God dies, so does the universe he created. RWBY Volume 3 and 4 have been released as this is being rewritten. These seasons are darker than the first two, but nothing compared to what I saw. If anyone else beat the episode, please let me know in some way. I don't want to be alone anymore. Not anymore.